The Galactic Academy orbited the peaceful world of Centauri Prime, a station where the brightest minds from across the civilized galaxy gathered to study. Among the sleek, delicate forms of the Valori, the crystalline Jantari, and the floating Etherians, two humans stood out like scars on silk. Anna watched from across the lecture hall as Alexander took his seat, his movements careful and measured. The other species had learned to give humans space, not out of respect, but out of discomfort. Earth was classified as a Class 9 death world, a designation reserved for planets so hostile that survival itself was an evolutionary miracle. "Look at them," whispered Zixthura, a Valori student whose translucent skin pulsed with disdain, pretending to be civilized. Everyone knows their planet is a nightmare of poison, predators, and weather that could kill you in minutes. Anna's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She'd heard it all before. The jokes about humans being violent primitives who'd somehow stumbled into space travel. The way professors spoke more slowly when addressing human students, as if intelligence and brutality were mutually exclusive. Alexander, for his part, seemed unbothered. He'd been on the station for 3 months, keeping his head down, excelling in his xenobiology courses. He never mentioned his service record, never spoke of the 7 years he'd spent in Earth's planetary defense force before coming to the Academy. That changed when the Krell arrived. The attack came without warning. 3 Krell warships dropped out of FTL directly above the station, their weapons hot, their intent clear. The Krell were raiders, pirates who preyed on soft targets, research stations, medical ships, refugee convoys. They'd studied the Academy's defenses and found them laughable. Alarms shrieked through the corridors. Students scattered in panic, their evolutionary histories offering no context for violence on this scale. The Valori huddled together, their bioluminescence flickering with terror. The Jantari's crystalline forms hummed discordantly with fear. Anna ran toward the emergency shelters, but stopped when she realized Alexander wasn't with her. She turned to see him moving in the opposite direction, toward the station's armory. "Alex, what are you doing?" She called out. He paused, looking back at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than his 26 years. "Getting to work." The Krell boarding parties breached the hull in 6 locations. They were massive creatures, 3 meters tall with armored hides and forearms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. They'd evolved on a gravity-heavy world and considered themselves the apex. Predators of known space, they'd never encountered a human in combat. Before, Alexander moved through the corridors, like water flowing downhill smooth, inexorable, following the path of least resistance until he found his targets. The first Krell raider didn't even see him coming. One moment, the corridor was empty. The next, Alexander had materialized from a ventilation shaft, a plasma cutter in one hand and a maintenance tool in the other. Humans, the Krell would learn too late, were persistence hunters. They tracked prey across continents, ran animals to exhaustion, killed with tools and strategy, and a stubborn refusal to give up. The Krell roared and swung. Alexander wasn't there. He was already behind it, the plasma cutter severing the nerve cluster at the base of its skull. The creature dropped. Anna found him 20 minutes later, standing over 3 more bodies. His academy uniform was torn and bloodied, but his hands were steady. "Alex," she started. "Get to the shelter," he interrupted, his voice flat. "I need to reach the command deck. You can't take on a whole boarding party alone." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw something in his expression that made her understand why the galaxy feared humanity. It wasn't rage or hatred. It was something far more terrifying. Calculation. "I'm from Earth, Anna. Every day of my life before I left, something was trying to kill me. Weather, disease, predators, other humans. On Earth, you learn to fight or you die. These raiders?" He gestured at the fallen Krell. They're used to victims. They've never faced prey that fights back. He moved on, and Anna followed despite his orders. She watched as Alexander turned the station itself into a weapon-venting atmosphere, into corridors occupied by raiders. Using the station's maintenance robots as improvised explosive devices, leading Krell into the hydroponics bay where earth plants waited with thorns, toxins, and allergens that the raiders' biology had never evolved to handle. The Krell captain finally encountered Alexander on the command deck. The massive alien had expected to find the station's administrators cowering behind their desks. Instead, he found a human who barely reached his chest, holding a salvaged Krell weapon with disturbing familiarity. "You're just a student," the captain growled in broken standard. A soft academic from a primitive world. Alexander smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "I'm a graduate of Earth. That means I've survived hurricanes that could flay the skin from your bones. I've had viral infections that would kill you in hours. I've competed with billions of my own species for food, water, and space. Every single one of my ancestors, going back millions of years, was a survivor of the most hostile planet in known space." He raised the weapon. "And you thought that made me soft?" The shot echoed through the command deck dot when station security finally arrived. An hour late and 3 ships short, they found Alexander sitting against a wall, using his torn uniform to bandage a Shantari student who'd been caught in the crossfire. Around him lay 14 Krell raiders. The rest had fled back to their ships. The attack was over. The academy was saved. Anna sat beside him, her own hands shaking from adrenaline. "They'll never look at us the same way again," she said quietly. Alexander nodded, his expression weary. "Good. Maybe they'll finally understand. We don't come from a paradise. We don't have the luxury of centuries of peace. Earth made us into survivors. It made us into fighters. It made us into something that doesn't quit, doesn't break, and doesn't run." He looked up at the stars visible through the command deck viewport, toward the small yellow sun that was home. "They thought I was just a student. They forgot that human students study between ice ages, plague outbreaks, and extinction events. They forgot that civilization on Earth isn't the absence of danger, it's what we built in spite of it." Anna took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Welcome to the galaxy, Deathworlder." Alexander squeezed back, a genuine smile finally crossing his face. "Thanks, though I think they're the ones who need welcoming. To a universe where humans exist." The galaxy would indeed learn that lesson in time. Humans weren't the strongest species, or the fastest, or the smartest. But they were the species that Earth had forged through millions of years of relentless trial. They were endurance incarnate, adaptability personified, and stubbornness given form. They were Deathworlders. And they'd only just arrived.